Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and wondered how people perceive you? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you see a police car passing through your neighborhood? Do you feel afraid or do you feel safe? On the morning of August 2nd, 1942, John Jose Diaz was picked up from a dirt road near the Delgadillo Ranch house close to Los Angeles and taken to the General Hospital where he died without ever recovering consciousness. Was he murdered? There were no witnesses and no murder weapon was found at the time, but police officials arrested 22 boys, of which 17 of them were later declared guilty of murder. They were arrested near the Delgadillo house on a place called the Williams Ranch, on a dirty little pond that these boys used to swim in and hang out with friends because they were discriminated against in public pools and other public places. You may wonder, how did the police choose who to arrest and justify that these boys looked like criminals when there was no evidence that incriminated them? Well, these boys were Mexican American. Does that change the way you think about this legal case? In the courtroom, these boys stood before rich, clean, and well-dressed people. None of them looked like these boys. These boys had not given a chance to clean themselves up. They did not feel they had the right to say they were not guilty because they were made to look like monsters capable of murder, not through evidence but based on appearance. Before going to court, these boys were intimidated by the police. For example, Angel Padilla, an 19-year-old back then, was harshly beaten and forced to confess to a crime he did not commit. He was handcuffed to a chair, grabbed by the hair, and hit into his head what the police official wanted to hear. And when the police official threatened Padilla to break his foot, Padilla said yes. Yes to everything so he wouldn't get hit anymore. For more than 3 months, these boys had been in jail without a change of clothing or haircuts, with the intention of using their style and haircut, the thick, heavy heads of hair, the ducktail comb, the pachuco pants, in securing their convictions. Officials wanted these boys to appear like gangsters and delinquents, but these boys were not criminals. They just wanted to embrace what made them different from the Anglo-American society through the suit fashion. A suit is an oversized suit that pachucos, young Mexican Americans, wore as a symbol of cultural resistance and as a form of protest against white supremacy. Pachucos and suits may have provided flamboyant evidence of a minority group pushing the social boundaries, pushing for cultural visibility. But when the Sleepy Lagoon case broke, it had already been established in the minds of the American public that any Mexican-American young boy was a Pachuco gangster, a suit criminal. And so, these images gave the American public a negative image to associate with their fear of a culture that seemed to be staking its own claim to the American dream. It is evident that the police used the death of Jose Diaz as a pretext not only to criminalize these young boys, but to intimidate, silence, and criminalize the entire Mexican and Mexican-American community. In other words, the arrest of these innocent young boys served as a broader message in which, to the eyes of the Anglo-American society, the clothing and physical appearance of people of Mexican descent is linked to being a criminal. But the true killer was later identified and these innocent boys were released. Does that mean that the anti-Mexican sentiment ended? Reflect on today's world. Racial discrimination has always been a continuous issue within minority underrepresented communities in the United States. It becomes a severe problem worth noticing when the criminalization process of minority groups is justified based on their ethnic, cultural background, and racial physical characteristics. The Sleepy Lagoon case involves racial discrimination because these boys were judged based on their clothing, skin color, and cultural origin. Sadly, this case represents one of many where we can observe the judicial abuse of power to treat crime as a matter of race and with the clear intention of criminalizing an entire ethnic group. If there's something you must take from this, is the following. There is no connection between being Mexican and a murderer, and there is no connection between physical appearance and the likelihood of committing a crime. The term race was invented to create division among people, to claim that some people are born good and others are naturally bad. The term race was invented to justify what cannot be justified, and that is injustice.